All right, everyone, welcome back to the grand finale of All the Mod 6, at least this season of All the Mod 6. I like to preference it with that because I never know if I'm going to revisit a pack on the same numbering scale for the same version. So obviously this is 1.16, and we could always come back to this pack for a second season if we really wanted to. So obviously that's why I'm just saying season 1, or at least the first season. So, but no guarantees. Anywho. So I figured this is going to be the wrap-up episode that I've been talking for the past couple of weeks on. We have some other series already in progress here on the channel. We have Enigmatica 6, which we're already up to probably episode 7 or 8 by this point in time. Obviously, we have Minecraft Dungeons still going strong. We had some new DLC, Hidden Depths that just dropped recently that we've been playing through, along with the 1-year anniversary event, which really has pushed some momentum behind that game, along with some additional content that they've dropped for it, including Ancient Hunts and the new raid captains or raid bosses or whatever you want to call them that have been included as well. So we have all that going on Minecraft Dungeons, and there's also maybe another series on the horizon, depending on how Minecraft Dungeons pans out. But we shall see how it goes. But anyways, so this is going to be the wrap up. I figured we would just go through a few things, do a recap, kind of reminisce on some of the stuff that we have built here in our game save. I mean, we have done quite a bit here, which is amazing to see, and I feel like we ultimately came out, achieving a lot and having a really cool base and world, and just having a great time with this pack. So obviously we're starting off in the main area here. For those of you who have watched through the whole entire series, you might have remembered from the original episode that we did ultimately build our first camp in this swamp area. There was a big willow tree that was actually right about here where we're standing currently, and we built it inside this tree. And from there, we kind of worked our way out. Now, eventually, it got to a point, we worked out from there. We had come over in this direction, set up a bunch of like power generation and tool and machines and things like that over here. And we had like a grandiose walkway that we would take from our main tree hut all the way out to the water here. And then in the water, we had a normal pier that was right out here, which was pretty cool. And we had some fishing and such over here. And then from there, we obviously expanded out. Now, as you can see, we've radically changed that. We kind of went ahead and did a complete overhaul of the main base. And so this is now our swamp temple is what I call it. And we have our grandiose entranceway here that kind of walks you up into the main hub of everything. So downstairs here on the main level, we do have a lot of our power stuff. So we have our energy cables with our energizing rods and our energizing orb. So again, a lot of stuff from power, and we had hooked into our refined storage system with an iron crafter there to allow automation around that, which is pretty awesome. We have a bunch of machines, obviously, down here, a bunch of thermal series stuff, things for our mining gadget, stuff from Applied Energistics. I mean, early on, that's what we were really using. And then moving over here, we do have a create area. This was one of our earlier create setups that we actually had gotten into. And this originally had its own spot, but as we completely overhauled this base and this main area, we had shifted it down here, which is really nice. On this side, we do have a bunch of mechanism machines, and these were the original ones that we would use. We would utilize these for all of our ore processing, and we did have it hooked up to our ender pouches here so that we could easily send things back and have it auto process through this setup. And that was about, what, three times ore processing or so, maybe two to three. Just depends. I can't recall offhand. But yeah, we don't really use these too much anymore since we have our whole refined storage setup over there, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Over here is some of the original power generation that we had got up and going. So using thermo generators, using magmators, along with just having an infinite source of lava pretty much being pulled from the nether up into this location via a ender tank there. We were using these a lot to generate a lot of power, especially when we started off. As we have progressed on, that has shifted, and we do have solar panels. Those are in the mining dimension. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Heading down below here, you can see we have things hooked up into our not only to our refined storage, but obviously overall our ender cell, which is our power system. So this is all the power that we have saved up currently, which is over 1 billion FE or RF, however you want to say it, all the same. But we have, yeah, over 1 billion units of power saved up, which is just crazy to think about. We also did get into Flux networks just a little bit. We tied that into another power source that we had, which was our reactor. We got a power reactor up and going, which is pretty nice. It was really cool to see. We also got the power player transmitter. Again, focusing in on all the power stuff. This pretty much just allowed us to have our items in our inventory be charged wirelessly if they did utilize power. Now, we really honestly haven't used anything with power in quite some time because we don't use jetpacks. We don't really use any tools that utilize power. We have the Angel Ring that we spent a lot of time getting via Britannia. And then we pretty much just use our all the modium tools. We only have the blade on us right now, but in our backpack, if I open it up, we do have a lot more of those all the modium tools. Now, we did get most of these before they did a update in the pack where it made it a little bit more difficult to get them. And previously their damage was a lot lower, but now they've bumped it up quite high. Before it was about 150 damage, but obviously you can see now it's over 1500 damage. But that is because they have bumped up the difficulty to make those, like I had mentioned. So this is the main area. Obviously, we had waystones pretty much connecting all of our different locations here. So that was a great way to get around. Now we move upstairs, and this was kind of meant to be our kind of train hub. Originally, I had an idea of getting a whole minecart system up and going, and as you can see right across there, that was supposed to be kind of the station for our Britannia setup. We never ultimately went down that path. We switched gears, and I got to this cool bridge up and going, which we did a whole entire episode on that. That was super fun to get going. So this never ultimately became the train hub location that I wanted it to be, but we did utilize it to store a lot of our Twilight Forest items here. So a lot of the trophies that we got from the Twilight Forest I have put in here along with some of the armors and just weaponry and things like that. Obviously, we got our bed there just in case. And we were going to have some villagers in here for trading. We did have one in here for some time, but ultimately it was kind of beyond the point where we really needed villagers. So those, for the most part, have been empty since creation. Now coming out here into the main area, we do have our setup for elemental craft. This was an awesome mod that was pretty much brand new to me going into all the mod 6. It was really cool. They've added a bunch of stuff in since we have tinkered with it, so highly recommend diving into it. But the basics of it pretty much allows you to do some ore duplication, which is pretty nice, or doubling in the ore processing, I should say. Where you can double it and then take that double and then put it into another system to kind of then get it ×3, and you could utilize that for like ancient debris and things like that, things that you normally wouldn't be able to duplicate in that way. You were able to via elemental craft, and it also offered some other cool things as well. It was a bit laggy when we started tinkering with it, but I know they've refined it quite a bit since we have put a lot of time into it. So super fun mod to get into. Kind of wish that we had it in our recent mod pack, Enigmatica, but I don't believe it is in there. Moving over here, we do have our farm setup. Actually, we have 2 farm setups here. We have one here, and then there's one across the way over there. We'll go over there in just a minute, just to take a peek at things. But these are our super high-tiered automated farms. So we are using a lot of mystical agriculture seeds in here. We were originally growing like wheat and things like that to get some food processing up and going, which we'll get into in just a little bit here. But these fields have produced so much output for us, and they still continuously do. So pretty much what we use on these is a fertilizer. We have a really cool fertilizer that we have placed down. Those are those little orangish red spots that are on the soil itself. And then we utilize the lily pad of fertility, which also bumps up the overall growth rate on these guys. And as you can see, they just grow so quick. And then we're using a create system to actually harvest everything. So these are harvest wheels, I guess, from create. And we've done a couple different episodes on that, so I'm not going to go too deep into the technology and the way that we set it up. But yeah, it's pretty nice on how it runs. And this is a small scale of it. We did a max scale of it over here on this farm, as you can see. And we never even filled out the full amount of the farm just because we're already producing so much just off of this. So as you can see, we've labeled things. We have quartz going, we have diamond, redstone, netherite, gold, and 4 rows of emeralds here. And I think it's 15 across, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to double check on that. But you can come in here and kind of see the products that we've produced over time. I mean, we have almost 11,000 diamonds there, but also almost 11, well, we have 10,000 blocks of diamond. And then on top of that, you know, redstone, the lapis, the nether quartz there. If we look at the netherite, we have a bunch of netherite ingots here, almost or a little over 7,000 of those. So again, just the amount of resources that we were pulling in from this is kind of crazy. It's really awesome once you're able to get to the state, but it does also take away a little bit from the overall difficulty once you get to this point. And there is kind of that difficulty gap when you get to this point, but you're not quite to the point where it's going to take a very, very long time to get to those extreme end game items, which are like the creative stuff, which we've made a few creative items, but there are some things that require all the Modium stars, which is just, it's a lot of work to get to that point. Over here, one last thing to note is we did have some of our immersive engineering set up here. It's actually interesting. It looks like this blast brick oven no longer works, or something happened to it. Interesting, but we had our coke oven and our alloy kiln there, so always good. Immersive engineering was super fun to start off with. We never dove super deep into it, and maybe in Enigmatica we might do that. Moving right along over to here, since we were just talking on our farms, I figured we would get into our food stuff. Obviously, we have our whole cooking for blockheads set up in here in our kitchen area, as I call it. And we kind of put this in late game, and really for this pack, it's not a expert pack in any forms of the imagination, so food wasn't a main concern, especially since we got up and going a lot of these charms with them being pretty much unbreakable or indestructible. So these will always work, so strength regen and speed. So we really just, it's going to take a lot for us to die. Like starving is not going to kill us that easily. And we also got a bunch of bacon cheeseburgers up and going. We set up a whole automated process in order to mass produce bacon cheeseburgers. You know, we ultimately, we got a lot going. I think we can pull it up here. We have, 6,600 bacon cheeseburgers up and going, which is pretty crazy. We did a lot of work for it, but we did put this in pretty late game. We also have our Emerald Muncher over here from Farming for Blockheads, which offers us a way to buy seeds and such. Heading down here, again, this area was a little bit more later game, I would say, where we got some wool production going over here with our sheep. We had some stuff going over here from Industrial Foregoing with getting, you know, pink slime from the mob slaughter factory and utilizing this to get different upgrades in the dissolution chamber, and also ultimately getting mob duplication up and going. So if we click on this, you know, it's going to be spawning in a lot of these guys. And I think the machine is running, if I'm not mistaken. It should be, unless I turned it off for some reason. No, it should be running. But it doesn't really seem to be, or maybe below it's not set up, because I think it's actually, no, this should be it, right? Mob crusher, redstone, run with redstone signal, or ignored. I think it's just ignored. There we go. So yeah, this thing just produces so many mobs. I mean, it doesn't require any mob essence, even though we can store up that mob essence down here in the in this. So if we ever wanted to actually duplicate a specific mob, we could do it. But we also have a way to infinitely pretty much get that mob essence. And then over here along the back wall, real briefly, I'll talk on, this was our automated setup for creating those bacon cheeseburgers here, and pulling in ketchup and everything like that, and utilizing this tier 3 crafter to just go through and produce all the different ingredients we needed, like ketchup, soy, and everything. It was super fun to figure that one out. So then moving right along off of food, I guess we can come over here and just talk on our bees, because that's the next big thing. Well, it's one of the other big things that we spent a good amount of time on, was our bees. This was our main setup for our bees here. The Oranos 1988 Bee Sanctuary, a viewer here on the channel and over on our Twitch streams as well. A great contributor to our overall creativity with this pack and with this save. So obviously I appreciate it, and you know, I wanted to show that via having him be designated as the creator of this space here, or the owner. It is a little bit dirty. He probably should come in and clean it up. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so we had this whole sanctuary set up for our bees for when we started on them and started breeding them and so on and so forth. And when we started actually into it, we had a problem with the baby bees. So I don't know if they fixed it. It's been a while since we've actually done some breeding in this sense. But originally, you would have two bees, adult bees, you know, breed together, big size bees breed together, and then they would produce a tiny bee of whatever version the bred together breeds would make. And the problem with that is that they could easily glitch into things, into blocks, and they would take damage. So what we ended up creating was this patented growth chamber, trademark pending. Well, it says TM, but it's actually pending. So what we utilized were these fans, and pretty much all you had to do was turn it on, and the fans would actually be set to about 1, a range of 1. So there'd be a singular block here. And the speed, we had it pretty high. It didn't really much matter on the speed, but this would prevent the bees from going up into the ceiling at all. So they'd pretty much stay on this bottom area and not glitch into any blocks, which was extremely useful to prevent them from dying, because we would breed up a bee and then they would die, and it would be such a bummer. And now it is no longer like that. It is a lot easier to breed them, I believe, especially with our Apiaries setup. We also have our Elite Centrifuge controller over here. We did want to progress actually towards the different tiered centrifuges, but they cost so many resources that there was just no feasible way for us to get there in any simplistic way, I should say. We'd pretty much have to let the game run for a couple days on its own to accumulate the resources that we needed. And that's not fun to me. To leave a game running just so it can accumulate resources is not fun. Like, I want to play the game. I don't want to just let it sit there to accumulate something that I need. So anyway, we had all these different chambers for the bees, and double doors, basically, kind of like, you know, like chambers, like air chambers that you would have to go through to prevent them from getting out. Now, we don't really have too many bees in here. We just kind of have a couple one-off bees that are relaxing in here. And most of them are actually going to be tucked away for the night. But coming up here, we do have our Apiaries, which was super fun to get up and going and really output a high yield of resources. So we do have, I think they're all tier 4. I don't know if this last one over here is tier 4. Yep, they're all tier 4 Apiaries. And we do have, again, couple of different types of bees in here. So in this one, we have a gold one and a wither bee, right? Yep, a wither bee. Over here, in this first one, this was the first one we got up, we have lapis, redstone, a gold, gunpowder, and then ender bee, I believe. And they have changed some of the textures, I am noticing. Like this one just went in here. Was it the lapis bee or the RGB? That they've definitely changed some of the textures on, which is really, really cool to see. I mean, even since the start of this pack, several months ago, they've changed some of the textures on these guys. Over here, we have a similar case scenario. We have gold, blaze, soul sand, iron, and then I believe nether star. So I think it's withered bees. And yeah, that produces us a lot of resources. If we go into here and we look up our wither stars, or nether stars, I'm sorry, not wither stars, nether stars. We have almost 800 nether stars, which is pretty crazy to say the least, considering we aren't actively fighting the wither, and we don't have a farm set up for defeating the wither. That's all from our bees. So really, really powerful mod to get up and going and to utilize. Then over here we do have our guy, our Beekeeper Master, which we could just do some trading with. I really haven't done much with him, but obviously we do have a banner that I got from him up and going, and I thought it was a cool addition. Now, you can get higher tier and creative apiaries, but again, it falls into that resource conundrum where you're just letting your game run for pretty much days on end to accumulate the resources that you want or need, or just setting up massive farms, even more than what we have there, to get those resources. And I'm just not about it. I don't think that this just takes the fun away from everything. Now, moving down here, we do have our reactor setup from our Power mod. It's currently not running, or it's just backlogged with energy, so it doesn't need to run. This was one of our earlier builds that we did in this pack, that it actually took us a while to get populated with anything. I had the idea of putting a reactor down there and then ultimately went a different path, and it wasn't until much later in the game that we actually got that up and going. So moving right along here, we do have quite a bit more to go through, so I'm going to try to streamline the rest of this. This was the next big build that we got going. It has changed over time. This is our windmill, and this is create power via the wind momentum. So we are using the windmill bearing here, and this produces a good amount of power with high torque. We do have it coming down, and it can be hooked into these crushing wheels. We also have flywheels and furnaces and things like that to give power. But the main thing being this setup over here, these mechanical crafters, which allowed us to make certain things within the game, along with within the mod itself, which is really cool. And then this right here happens to be another one of our create builds, which is a moving platform. We'll get to that in just a minute. We did have our mystical agriculture pedestal set up over here in a really cool kind of gazebo with leaves vibe here. This was one of our earlier mystical agriculture farms where we tried to automate it before going into the create mod. So this is just one of those here. Over here, we do have our botany pots, which are growing certain things. This was a great way to get seeds and just grow various things that we utilize here in our gameplay before shifting them over to the bigger farms. We do have a crafter here set up, which takes all of the outputs from the mystical agriculture items, like nether quartz and diamonds and things like that, takes all of these essences and makes them into the actual end products. Over here, this plays into the farm above. Nothing too much to talk on there. Here's some internals from our create moving platform above. I've done plenty of episodes on that logic, so I'm not going to dive too far into it. Moving over here, this was another one of our builds where we started getting into more of a creepy, dark vibe with our enchanting and then our potion crafting and the nether as well. So obviously we have all of our enchanting here, apotheosis shelves, and so on and so forth. Not diving too far into it. We do have our elevator here, which we created. Again, one of our earlier create mechanisms and modes of transportation that brings us down into one of the coolest things that we set up. We spent a lot of time on this, and this is our kind of nethery overworld region. This is still the overworld, but we've made it out to look like the nether of sorts. We do have our potion brewing down here, as well as our mob farm. Our mob farm is over here, and honestly, it's one of the earlier mob farms that we got up and going. There are way better ways that we could have done it, but again, it was very early game that we kind of got that going. But yeah, we went through here, we shifted out all of the blocks for netherrack and soul sand and things like that. Just spent a whole heck of a lot of time down here making it look as it is, and ultimately we didn't really use it for a ton of different setups. So anywho, moving right along, then we're gonna hop across the water here. We will take our platform, so this will actually move us over just like so. One of the coolest ones that we got going, again, one of the earlier ones. And then we can top up here, click this one will actually then move us up. We do have a jumbo furnace here, jumbo furnaces, which allowed us to get into the more red mod, which was pretty fun to get into. Obviously, Twilight Forest portal there, which we had a couple episodes around. We have our mechanism thermal evaporation chamber here, which was utilized, or is utilized, I should say, for our ore processing, which I will get into in just a minute. We created this whole entire build over here. I mean, it's transformed many times since its initial creation. So this is kind of just where it has ultimately landed. We did put this bridge in one of our, I think, live streams. We put this bridge in to mimic our main gates over there, which we'll get to in just a second. But again, I love the way that we went with this and just the vibe of it and the colors that we used. We used this gabbro brick from Create, and it looks really nice. I liked the color on it. Then moving over here, we did start getting into elemental core a little bit, which is environmental core, which was environmental tech previously. And they changed it so much, and I'm not the biggest fan of how they changed it. It became extremely confusing now and not very straightforward. And there wasn't a great guide behind it. We did have to do a lot of research and had a lot of help from the community, actually. So thank you guys who are watching who were able to help out with this. We didn't ultimately get through all of the tiers, but pretty much because I just lost interest in it, to be completely honest. So that was that. Let's move over to our refined storage area. So this was our big storage setup that we ultimately moved from our main base. Our main base that has now since been gone, which was that tree, was our original storage area. And we have then shifted it over to this big building here, which we have a lot of different things going on. Over here, we were using stonework factories to actually create silicone, which was pretty awesome because a silicone is a must-have, and it's better to do it that way than trying to get a bunch of quartz to smelt it up. We do have this, which actually creates milk for us in buckets. If we wanted to bucket it, we could do that. This was our cyclic setup here, so we could use this to create certain things using magma, using slime, so on and so forth. This is another crafter over here, which would take certain items. It'll take certain things and condense them, so our inventories aren't just completely getting demolished. Right here is a salvager from Silent Gear, which I used for gold equipment that we would pick up along our travels, mainly in the Nether. And this would kind of break it down into its basic items and then put it into our system. Over here, we have a constructor and a deconstructor, a constructor and a destructor, I should say. And this is used for our diamond blocks that we get. So we get diamond ore, and this will actually break it down into its main components. Obviously, we have our main setup for our refined storage system here. Our creative controller and our crafting grid obviously went with purple because purple is my favorite color. We're going to hop downstairs, and this is the grandiose area. A lot of automation and machines going on down here. First and foremost, we'll talk about the refined storage because we were already on that path. We did get up and going a normal, what is it? A creative wireless transmitter, which is really nice. This works for our actual wireless crafting grid here that we can access, and we can now access it across dimensions, which we went over in a more recent episode. We also have network transmitters for all different points. We do have a bunch of storage. We did get a 65 million storage disk up and going, which is crazy. Took so many resources, and it would take even more to get higher tiers than that. We do have crafting managers and so on and so forth, monitors and blah, 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 all that technical stuff from refined storage. We do have a bunch of netherite crafters going. This was a lot of our automation where we would put patterns in here, and it would allow us to craft up things at a request, really. And we did get a creative crafter going, but honestly, I didn't see much more benefit to the creative compared to, like, let's say the netherite one. Plus, it was a little bit more expensive to get that. Going on ahead, we do have all of our automated systems here, and it's going to be hard to go through all of these. So we're going to breeze through them relatively quick, but pretty much every single machine here is a mechanism machine utilized for different functionalities, and they all have some kind of crafter above them. This will then, you request, let's say, one of these processors. It'll craft up the raw processor, or the raw advanced processor, and then it'll stick it right into the smelting factory, and it'll smelt it up, and then we have an importer to import it into our system. We actually have creative importers to make it go really quick. And then very similar, again, with other machines, infusing factory here, like this one's for redstone to make different things for mechanism. Same here, another mechanism setup, other various items as well. We do have a latex processing area over here, which we haven't used in quite some time. And then moving right along, again, this one's for obsidian, so reinforced alloys, and then infused alloys and things like that. So a bunch of different items here. We do also have a way to actually make mossy cobblestone if we really wanted to. Here is our mystical agriculture essence condenser. So this will take mystical agriculture inferium essence and then condense it into different types all the way up through insanium. Right, insanium, yep. Which is pretty nice to have. Over here was another setup for elemental craft where it would duplicate certain things, like I said, like ancient debris and so on and so forth. Then the big one right here in the middle, this whole entire setup, which I'm not diving fully into, is our way that we do 4 times ore processing through mechanism. Right here, we have a double layer of the machine setup just so we can increase the turnaround time on things. And right here is where it starts. So basically, our purple bag is linked to this one right here, this chest. It'll go in, start the whole processing. It jumps from there all the way over to here and then flows into these systems. And you can see it's actually going through stuff currently. Auto sort should be on for these actually. I don't know why that wasn't on for that one. But yeah, and it just goes through this whole process, and that's how we get a lot of ore output. But it does take us a lot of stuff to get there. The mechanism ore duplication is a lot of work, but it was totally worth it to get up and going. So that is our refined storage building right here. And that kind of ties then into one of the bigger builds that we started with, which is our grandiose entranceway into our kingdom of sorts. And these are the two entryway towers here. And we actually have it set up so that it'll retract the bridge. So if something needed to go through the bottom, it could. Obviously, it's still limited by these pillars here, but I think overall it was a really cool build that is using the create mod to pull those in and out. Moving right along, this is going to be a little bit longer episode than normal, guys. So again, just keep that in mind. We do have our create set up for our underwater pathway, rising and lowering one. We spent a ton of time getting the logistics of this just right, and I'm really happy with the end result of it, that it does rise up in 3x3 case scenarios. Now, unfortunately, sometimes fish do kind of get in the way and meet their ultimate demise there. But this brings us over then to our Britannia setup over here. Again, I mean, not really too much to talk on. We did automate being able to get to these endo flames running with open crates and hoppers and ender chests and such, so we could get more mana flowing here. You can see we're sitting at full mana already. Because we haven't used these in quite some time. We do have our Elven portal over here as well, or our Living Wood portal, I should say. But yeah, that's about it over here. And we do have our mana infuser here as well. From there, we were planning on getting another bridge going over this way, but ultimately it just never happened, which is fine. This is our mine colony setup, one of the more, I would say, probably neglected things of this whole entire playthrough. It was fun to start off with, but the thing that I do realize with mine colonies, a lot of people I feel like run into it, is that it's extremely, extremely tedious to do. It's a lot of, back and forth requests for what a builder will need. And I know that there are probably ways that you could bump up the overall speed, but it is, again, a very tedious process to get everything up and going. Now, it looks awesome. It's really cool to have an actual living and breathing community, but it takes a lot of time to get there. This alone was a lot of time, a lot of live stream time, and it looks cool, but again, we kind of ultimately, I personally lost interest in it. I know a lot of you probably would have liked to see it go further to fruition, but I more so had lost desire to keep going with it. We do have our border wall here that keeps on going, and this was one of the more recent things that we went ahead and did, is kind of built this port and entranceway into the mine colony area here, which is pretty nice. So we have our main entrance from the boat. You come off here, you got some nice different ways you can go, some food there. This is actually the main path here, and when you jump off, it looks like it's closed off, right? But we actually built in a create setup that'll lower the gate for you so you can then walk in to the kingdom itself, and then it can be closed. And we even set it up here on the actual pathway itself, so if a guard is up here, they could open and close it as needed, which is really cool. Again, it's more just a cool functionality thing. Is it ever really going to be used for its purpose? No, but it's that imaginative side of it that made it really, really fun to think of. Now, this was extremely tedious to get up and going. I've done an episode around this, so again, I recommend checking it out. Checking out the whole series if you're interested in anything that we're going over here. But this again was create setup. We utilized create in order to get everything going. We can jump down here and you guys can kind of see the whole entire setup, encased fans, and so on and so forth. Moving right along, we did again get this whole outside set up, and we did have plans to create another kind of camp area down here, but it never came to fruition because of just timing and requests of what the person needed, what the builder needed, and it really never getting it to that point, and me not wanting to put more time into it. So that is pretty much the setup over here. And for our overworld, there's not really much more to go over, except one last thing I would say before we jump into a different dimension here, which is this way over here. So this was another grandiose build. I believe we did do this on stream, which is a nice walkway, a nice pathway into our kingdom. And the plan was to have another village entrance camp over here. And I was going to try to use the mine colonies, but you know, kind of becoming disinterested with the mine colonies, I didn't really push for it. And so this is ultimately where it had landed, is just being an entranceway with nothing more than that. But it was really fun to get up and going, I would say. Again, tying into the overall aesthetic of the kingdom here with those Gebaro bricks. So the last thing that we have is honestly nothing that special, I would say, and that is over in the mining dimension. So the mining dimension, well, we did get up and going. It's a great place to do mining if you want to, or as we have used it previously for wither fights. As you can see, we've done quite a few wither fights here. But I do also have set up here some more power generation, and this is where most of our power generation comes from, which is the Solar Flux Mod. We do have 2 unobtainium solar panels along with a all-the-modium solar panel. This makes, what does it make? 2,000 FE per tick. These ones make 65,000 FE per tick, which is just insane. I mean, 65,000 each, so that's 130,000 FE right there on top of that and everything else we make, like per tick too. That's not just, you know, like that's yeah, per tick. Like, can't stress that enough. We didn't really build anything in the other dimension. We did spend a lot of time there hunting for dragons, but nothing much there. We did have the Wild West when we've been to the Twilight Forest and Highlands where we could get some all-the-modium. Our big farm, which is back there, the diner we've been to, our potions, our nether portal, which was the original way we would actually get into the nether. Our mine, I guess this is another thing that we did do. So we did come over here and had a mine going here. Obviously, it's kind of progressed way more than what it was originally when we got going. But this was pretty much one of our original mine areas. And actually, if we go back to the main base here, one of the main mine shafts that we got going originally was right here, right off the path. Not a lot of people remember this, but we had created this awesome area using soapstone, and this actually went all the way down, and I think we pretty much ended up here with it. It was planned to go even further, but this down here was the original place that we had done a lot of our mining, getting a lot of our resources as well, was right down in here. And as you can see, we did spend a lot of time down here, but obviously didn't utilize a lot of the more recently acquired or later required tools. So like the mining gadget and so on and so forth. At that time, we were still pretty much using just a pickaxe of sorts to do a lot of our excavation and mining. But it is nighttime. Let's get a quick rest in, and then I think that's going to do it. That is going to be a wrap on this map, which is always crazy to just take and reflect back on everything that we've done in one of these series. Because for me, you know, I go episode to episode, but I know for a lot of people who watch this, you might be jumping in and watching it all continuously. So you're maybe seeing it within a number of hours, where I have been watching it and not really noticing it over a couple month span. So, but guys, you know, I think that's going to do it here. So I do want to say how much I appreciate all the support that this series has brought into the channel. I mean, even from the time that we started this series to the point now, we've gained so many new subscribers and followers, and learned so much more about different mods and things within the mod packs that, again, I'm very humbled by all the support that we've had around here, and I'm excited to see what is to come in the future, and I hope you guys are just as excited as me. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate it so very much. If you are new here and you do want to follow along, definitely hit that subscribe button. It'll let you know when any of the other series videos are going live on the channel here. I do stream over on Twitch, like I had mentioned before, on Mondays and Fridays at about 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Currently, we're playing through Horizon Zero Dawn, so if you're interested in hanging out live, definitely check that out. Link in the description down below, along with a link to the community Discord, where we do post updates with the channel as well as the stream, as well as just hang out and chit chat. So feel free to join over there. Again, link down below for that. But with that, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it so very much, and that's going to be a wrap on All the Mod 6. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take it easy.